All right, good morning, traders. Today is May 22nd, 2025. My name is John Carignan. I am the lead instructor here in the BYOB Trading Room. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody out there in podcast land, digital land, cyber land. Thank you for subscribing or following my content. Thank you for being a part of the BYOB Trading Room experience. All right, let's just take a look at the game plan or the summary from yesterday. All right, so my pivot this morning, 584.60. Above it, I'm a bull. Below it, I'm a bear. All of the Fab 5 is still in daily uptrends. FNGB and QQQ made outside days, closing nearly inside bullish traps over their 17 EMAs. SPY, Diamond Dow, IWM, all three made lower highs, lower lows, closing below bullish traps, but over their 17 EMAs. SPY closed with a 2-hour downtrend and a 10-minute downtrend. Gold in a downtrend, but definitely not bearish. Gold made a higher low and a higher high, closing over a bullish trap over the 17 EMA. Silver in a new uptrend, made a higher high and a higher low, closing over a bullish trap over the 17 EMA. That's bullish as well. USO in a downtrend made an outside day. That's a higher high and a lower low, closing under a bullish trap, but over the 17. UNG in a daily downtrend made an inside day, closing inside a bearish trap under the 17. US dollar index in a downtrend, closed near the 99.62 area. Good morning, Lenny. SPY Max Pain today is 586 with a put to call ratio of about one put to each call that expires today at 415. Dollar's still in that downtrend. We like that, okay? Cheap dollar makes our goods and services more affordable when they convert in the currency conversion, all right? We got coin. Coin got starred today, okay? Coin getting that grinder box breakout look. All right, take a look at coin if you like that. I like that consolidation launch pad build out right there. Take a look at coin. Maybe you got something going on coin today if you like it. All right, let's go look at some charts. Okay, SPY 10-minute downtrend coming into the close. Okay, 2-hour downtrend coming into the close. Daily, we got it on the candle, lower high, lower low, closing under that bullish trap, but over the rising 17 EMA. Still over that all-time high anchored VWAP. Still up here in quadrant 4, that's bullish. Still in an uptrend. To get a downtrend going on, they'd have to come all the way down here and take out this low. All right, so that's long ways off. Not saying it can't happen, but it's a long ways from converting this uptrend into a downtrend. Let's talk about the game plan this morning, all right? So how are we going to trade SPYs? Let's take a peek at it. All right, so I got a target of 581 down here. That's a first target. The second target is this open gap right here. Let's go to this chart. That's a 65-minute chart. All right, so you see this open gap right here. Let me circle that for you guys. You can see it. Okay, so here's the open gap right there. See where price, this is where Trump said, hey, no, we're going to pause tariffs on China, okay? Well, right here is where price gap $20, about $20 right there. Okay, so I think if we get past 581, I believe if we get past 581, all right, I believe price may continue to melt off a little further, all right, and I believe price may come down and visit, maybe partially fill some of this open gap, but I think I expect it to come down here to 577.08, 06. You can see right now in the pre-market price over here, I'm looking at 581.14. That was my next target lower. All right, so there's a good chance we're probably coming down to visit this. maybe even partially fill some of that gap. We'll see what happens, okay? But that's what I'm looking at for targets today. And of course, when I say partially fill, that means I'll probably come down and visit. See this peak right here? They may not fill it completely. They may find some support up on this peak right here, maybe about 570, 575 area. I think we were up there earlier, 575 over here. We were up there, so we could find some support right in there, that 570 area where price came up and we had a rally before. So we'll see what happens. But if they start to getting below this trap area, the open trap, and they start filling the gap, so look for about 570, 575 area. We'll see what happens, all right? So that's what we're looking at. You can see price down here at, 581 right now. On the game plan, all right, you can see we're already activating the game plan as we are below the bearish entry point, which was 582.20. All right, so SPY pivot 584.60. All right, above it I'm a bull, below it I'm a bear. We're below it, I'm a bear. Okay, you can see 582.20 was my bearish red erases green entry. So you got to pull back up to about 585 area, around that area, 584.60 or so. And then you can see price pulling back and erasing all of that green, and they may want to head further south. Again, the first target's 581. Okay, so that's how I trade SPY today. All right, then I'd look on the smaller time frame for possible signs of reversal, maybe a double bottom, maybe a triple bottom down there. Okay, but other than that, I think we continue moving further south. We'll see what happens. They may waffle it around, pull back to the pivot, and then dive even lower. We'll watch it and see what happens. But I'm expecting 581 to get tested. Of course, if they hang out on top of 581 for an extended period of time, well, I guess we're coming down to the open gap at 577. All right, so there's SPY on the 10-minute. You can see here's the game plan. Price up over 587.70. That's my bullish green erases red entry up there. I like 1 DTE Friday options and 8 DTE Friday options. I like them $5 to $15 out of the money. I like 10-minute uptrends over VWAP. I like 10-minute downtrends under VWAP. All right, so there's a possibility, all right, I just want to point this out, that price comes all the way back, all right, and we test this all-time high anchored VWAP, which is this teal line right here. Let's see where it lines up. Okay, so that teal line, that's the all-time high anchored VWAP, is way down there at 553.68. Okay, let me just say, pullbacks are normal. All right, this is a part of re-energizing the base to move higher. Okay, so you can see that all-time high anchored VWAP 553, about 553.80. Do I think we're getting there today? No, I don't. But this uptrend line still has not been tested in a while. And that uptrend line currently resides at 562.21. All right. With the next 1 hour candle. And I'm sure it will keep melting up here. So we also got a low anchored VWAP right here. And you can see that's at about 568. Okay, so this may be the second leg further south. It's possible they could fill gap today. Okay, because the second leg usually is the biggest one. Yesterday, I think we had the beginning of a 3-bar move. And I think today will probably be one of the biggest days if they decide to fill gap down here. All right, we'll see. So be careful. Could get a big move to the downside, maybe even filling gap today. All right, just be careful. All right, don't get in front of it either. All right, I'm just saying, like, when they're ready to sell, let them sell. Don't even wait. Let them tell you where the bottom is. All right, because if you try to jump in front of it, you know, they'll just run you over. All right, just be careful today. All right, be real careful. All right, so there's SPY on the 1 hour chart. As you can see, we're getting the 1 hour downtrend melting down there. All right, let's go take a look at, let's take a look at this. Okay, 2-day chart. All right, you can see the 2-day chart. In order to, we're in a 2-day downtrend. In order to negate the 2-day downtrend, we have to come up here and take out the highs. Okay, that's the first high over the 17. Okay, so 2 days still in a downtrend. Daily still in an uptrend. Okay, we haven't made a lower low. We'd have to come all the way down here and take out this low down here at 508. Okay, so daily is in an uptrend. 2 days in a downtrend. 3 day, got to come up here and take out that high, still in a downtrend. Weekly, still in a downtrend. See, weekly took out this low and this low, so that puts weekly in a downtrend. Okay, weekly has to come up here and take out the high to negate the downtrend. Monthly never took out the low down here. Okay, that low's 411. That's the first low below the 17 EMA. Okay, so monthly still in an uptrend. Okay, notice we don't have that 2 hour uptrend. We lost it. Okay, remember I was talking about unique environments or unique opportunities? Yeah, that unique opportunity is a 2 hour uptrend inside the daily uptrend, inside the monthly uptrend, all over the all-time high anchored VWAP, okay? Well, guess what? We don't have the 2 hour with us today, all right? But we may regain it. Maybe sometime next week, maybe even this week. We'll see, all right? Maybe they find some support right here. I'm sure I would expect a dollar bounce coming off of this open gap. Probably even a $2 or $3 bounce. Right off that big, that's the Trump anchored VWAP gap right there. Well, that's the Trump tariff gap right there. That's what happened there. That was when we opened up on Monday. All right, so maybe a $2, $3 bounce coming off that low right in there. Okay, so watch for that. All right, so here's the 2 hour. We don't have the 2 hour anymore, okay? That's part of our unique opportunity, all right? So now we have to be careful again, okay? So we have to wait for that 2 hour to reestablish itself because we no longer have it, all right? That's why I say when we got it, it's a unique opportunity. Take advantage of it. All right, so there's SPY. You got the game plan. We're probably coming down to, you can see we already hit 581 because we're at 580.80. All right, good chance we're coming all the way down here, 577.11, and we're probably going to bounce for a couple dollars. All right, look for them to bounce for a couple dollars, do an H pattern rollover, and probably retest the 577. 21 or 11 area, and then if that lingers there too long, they may start filling gap. All right, so there's SPY on the 2 hour. All right, let's go look at QQQ. Okay, you got the game plan. You got a good idea. If you don't, write me a message. I'll be happy to explain it again to you. All right, here's QQQ. Let's take a look at QQQ game plan. Pretty much just like SPY. All right, you can see the QQQ pivot, 514.50. Below it, I'm a bear. Above it, I'm a bull. Green erases red right up here over this base. Okay, 516.60. Above that, I'm a bull. Below that, I'm a bear. Okay, actually, no, below the pivot, I'm a bear. Okay, bearish, red erases green. Below 511.60, you can see we're below that right now. Okay, below 511.60. That's red erases green, green erases red, over 516.60. Again, I like, this is the QQQ game plan. Slide this over. Okay, I like the 1 day till expiration, Friday expiration options. I like the 8 days till expiration Friday options. I like those. I like them $2 to $5 out of the money because I got a small account. All right, because if I want the very best option, and I want penny for penny performance with the market, okay, that's going to be my 0 DTE in the money option. Okay, that's going to give me almost penny for penny performance when I trade that. All right, so but I don't want penny for performance because look at these candles. Okay, that candle right there was from 518 clear down to 514. That's a $4 candle. Okay, if I'm on the wrong side of that that's just one 10-minute candle. If I'm on the wrong side of that candle, all right, and I've got 10 contracts, all right, that's a $4,000 dip into my account. Okay, that's $4,000 right there in 10 minutes vanished. All right, and that's what happens from being on the wrong side. Look at this candle. That's 513 up to 517. There's another almost $4 candle. We'll call it a $3 candle, okay? Okay, again, if I'm on the wrong side, there's $4,000, $3,000 vanishes just like that. Okay, so I'm willing to give up some of the performance, all right, and take on a little less risk by moving to an option that's out of the money. All right, I'm okay with that. I don't need penny for penny performance. I just need to get the direction right without a lot of risk. That's why I choose the $5 to $15 out of the money, and that's why I choose the 1 day till expiration options and the 8 days till expiration options. You can even go out another 7 days, out to the 15s, maybe even next Friday. All right, you can see price action right now underneath, well underneath 511.60, melting down probably to that open gap. Over here on the left, right here, that's at 501.74. Okay, so that's a $10 drop right there on QQQ, right down to that open gap, and that's the Trump tariff gap right there. Probably come down there and test that. Maybe even start to fill it a little bit. We'll see what happens. All right, so there's QQQ. Let's look at this on the daily chart. Okay, on the daily chart, what did we have? An outside day. It's a higher high and a lower low. We closed inside the bullish strap, over the rising 17, over the uptrend line, over the all-time high anchored VWAP, up here in quadrant 4, that's bullish. Still in an uptrend because we have a higher low and a higher high. See that high? We made a higher high. So that's an uptrend. There's QQQ. You're allowed to have pullbacks in the uptrends. Okay? That's normal. All right? You may not like it, but it's normal. All right? Pulling back to the trend line is normal. All right? Okay? That's how they get their bounce. Okay? They get a little tired up here. Okay, they're going to have to pull back, get some bounce, get that red rubber school ball bounce. Now, if they melt into it nice and slow, okay, and they just grind into it just like a meltdown, all right, it'll be different. They can probably pass right through this uptrend line. But if they hit it hard and fast, you'll get a nice bounce most of the time. QQQ on the daily chart. Okay, let's take a look at FNGB. All right, FNGB. Outside day, higher high, lower low, closing inside the bullish trap, over the rising 17, over the all-time high anchored VWAP, up here in the upper third, that's bullish, okay, for FNGB on the daily chart. All right, bullish up there in the upper third. In an uptrend, higher low, higher high. Yeah, I'm expecting a pullback. Where would that pullback come to? It's a possibility. Comes all the way back to this area right here. So right back to the all-time high anchored VWAP. Maybe here, maybe right on top of this plateau, which would be the midpoint. All right, about 16, 18. So FNGB in an uptrend, bullish up here in the upper third. All right, let's take a look at IWM. IWM just neutral. Okay, it's not in the lower third, it's not in the upper third, so it's neutral. They're in an uptrend. They made a higher low, and they made a, see that high right there? They made a higher high. They're underneath the all-time high anchored VWAP. Okay, again, they are in the neutral area, not in the upper third, not in the lower third, and in an uptrend. Again, another pullback to the trend line would be normal. We'll see what they want to do. Let's move this out just a little bit. Right there. Tuck that in. Right there. We'll see what happens, all right? I don't think that's where that goes. I think this actually swings out somewhere over here. But that's where these two lows line up right now. All right, so there's IWM on the daily chart. Just neutral right there. Let's take a look at Diamond Dow. Diamond Dow, above the downtrend line. Okay, let's put in one of these. And squeeze it up tight there. Okay, price action for yesterday. Everybody got lower high, lower low, closing underneath a bullish trap, but over the 17. You can see even the IWM got the same thing. See, lower high, lower low, closing under the bullish trap, over the rising 17. Okay, they're under their all-time high anchored VWAP, whereas Diamond Dow closed also under. See that pink line? That's the all-time high anchored VWAP right there. Price action, not quite in the upper third, so that's just neutral. So Diamond Dow goes from bullish to neutral. Okay, IWM still neutral. Okay, SPY and QQQ still bullish. They're in the upper third. All right, price action, making a higher low and a higher high. That's bullish. Okay, that's an uptrend. Okay, just closing over the 17. That's still bullish. Under the trap, not so much. Over the uptrend line, that's looking good. Over the downtrend line, also looking good. So there's Diamond Dow, just neutral as of yesterday's price action. Let's take a look at our technicals, T2122. You can see we melted down out of the overbought zone. Right in, we even bypassed the buy zone, bypassed the buyer's chop zone, hit the midpoint here, that's the yellow line. Did a little waffle EKG right there, okay? And then tested the buyer's chop zone and slammed through the seller's chop zone. Okay, winding up inside the sell zone for a good part of the day, and even making an appearance inside the oversold zone. Okay, so price action. Remember, we stayed up here in this overbought zone for about, you can see 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks up there. We camped out, you know, between the buy zone and the overbought zone. A little bit of rest is not a bad thing. All right, so there's T2122. T2123. Okay, you can see yesterday's price action. It's a 15-minute chart. We're still up over. Okay, this rising 200 SMA, that's bullish. Okay, we now have consolidation under consolidation. Okay, that is a bearish environment. Look for those 10-minute downtrends to work. Look for the 10-minute uptrends to possibly fail. Okay, we now have a bearish environment beginning. Okay, from the bigger perspective. Okay, and take that out of there. Let's zoom way out. Okay, price moving up, holding that higher ground. That is bullish. Okay, just on the smaller time frame, do we have consolidation under consolidation, bearish environment? Only on the smaller time frame. Okay, I don't know. So this won't last for long. More than likely. Okay, this won't last for long. All right, I could be surprised, but I'm just saying, from the bigger perspective, we are in a bull flag up here, moving up and holding that higher ground. Notice it's not a V top or a peak top where price action goes up, all right, and comes back down like this and then comes back down, okay? They went up and they're kind of just, see that? They're kind of just flattening out right up there, okay? It could have been this, but it's not. Okay, this is bullish hanging out up here. It's just on the shorter time frame from a perspective of trading the intraday. We have a little bit of a bearish bias based on consolidation under consolidation, and that is a bearish environment. So probably 10-minute downtrends will work for a while until we recapture that 2-hour uptrend in the SPY. I will look for these 10-minute downtrends under VWAP to probably work very well, and probably the uptrends won't work as well as they did while we were in a 2-hour uptrend. So there's T2123. Okay, that's still bullish up there. Okay, it's making higher lows and higher highs. That's bullish. It's up over the 200 SMA. That's bullish. It's moving up and holding the higher ground. That's bullish. We got some bearish, some bullish gaps that are getting filled. You can see that one got filled yesterday, that bullish gap finally. All right, we got another bullish gap hasn't been filled. Another bullish gap that hasn't been filled. Huge bullish gap not filled. Another bullish gap that hasn't been filled. Okay, this is, from the bigger perspective, this is bullish, all right? We're just going to get some pullbacks, all right? And this is normal, all right? So there's T2123 on the 15-minute. On the 3-bar chart, okay, price action, still green, 3 more green candle bars, still up over this prior high, so they're still in an uptrend. They're over this fading 200 SMA. Up here looking to probably pull back, test the backside of this fading 200. Hopefully it holds, because if it doesn't, they're going to fill this gap. All right, hopefully it holds, and price action comes back up, J-hooks out of there, and starts attacking those prior all-time highs. There's T2123 3-bar chart. On the daily chart, we're still in a downtrend until we take out this high up here. Okay, on the daily chart. Okay, so a little ways off, but this is normal. This is that was a nice recovery right there. Okay, maybe setting up inverse head and shoulders. We'll see what happens. Okay, give it some time. It's going to take some time for that to set up. All right, FNGB. Again, moving up, holding that higher ground that's bullish. Okay, we've got a bullish gap right here that hasn't been filled. Okay, that's a bullish environment. That shows me bulls are in control. Price action moves up, holds that higher ground. That's looking good. Looks like we transcended underneath this rising 200. Actually looks like the 200 transcended over the top of this bull flag. All right, but you can see price action up there, holding that higher ground. That's bullish. Up over this all-time high anchored VWAP. That's bullish. Holding those bullish gaps open. That's bullish. Over the uptrend line, also bullish. Everything looking good on the 15-minute, okay? Maybe get a pullback, all right? A pullback to the uptrend line would be normal, all right? We may get that. I'm just preparing you. A pullback to the all-time high anchored VWAP would be normal, all right? Maybe when the two of these meet somewhere, you may see price start to come down there and want to tag the conversion of where they come together, all right? This all-time high anchored VWAP and this uptrend line where they merge together. Sometimes I've seen price want to come back and tag that location where two events merge together, all right? So we'll see what happens. Watch for that to materialize in the near future. There's the FNGB. All right, let's take a look at a few sectors, then we're going to hit the economic package. First one, XLE. Okay, so here's energy. Okay, energy's in an uptrend because it's making higher lows and higher highs. Performance is not that great. Okay, it's still in the lower third. That's bearish. Okay, it's in an uptrend, but it's bearish. Okay, it's got hit by downtrend line 2 right here. Hasn't even got to downtrend line 1. So downtrend line 1 got hit. Number 2 got hit. You can see price action underneath it, okay? That's bearish. In the lower third, that's bearish. Closing underneath the 17, that's bearish. Closing underneath the bearish cross, that's bearish. Closing underneath this 12-month high anchored VWAP, that's bearish. And underneath this midpoint, also bearish. Everything pointing to bearish other than the uptrend that it's in. Okay, that's what I got from XLE. Okay, it's just not time yet. Okay, the cake is not ready to rise. Okay, so there's XLE. Energy's not quite ready yet. Let's take a look at USO. USO in the lower third, still in a downtrend. Hasn't made a higher high yet. All right, so that's still bearish. Still in a downtrend. Still underneath this 3-year high anchored VWAP. Okay, still underneath the midpoint. Still bearish. Still in a downtrend. UNG. UNG is still in a downtrend, making lower highs and lower lows. See, lower high, lower low. We even got another lower high. Will the bears be inspired enough to make a lower low? We'll see. Okay, this is Nat Gas, still underneath the downtrend line. Okay, still in a downtrend, making lower lows and lower highs. Price action happens to be up over this 12-month high anchored VWAP. Let me just say the bar's not set very high, okay, on this one. Okay, that's not a very impressive high, but it's up over it, okay, right now, and we're not in the lower third. All right, so that's just neutral right there. Okay, no uptrend going on. It's just neutral because it's not in the lower third. Okay, it was down there a couple days ago. They managed to climb out of the lower third. We'll see. Maybe they're ready to break this downtrend line finally. Okay, we'll see. Okay, so that's it. Just neutral right there. And they just walked out the door of the bearish zone. So that's UNG. Let's take a look at GLD. GLD in a downtrend, but bullish up here in quadrant 4. Price action higher low, higher high, closing over. All-time high anchored VWAP, closing over. That's bullish. Closing over the bullish cross, that's bullish. Over the 17, that's bullish. Up here, quadrant 4, that's bullish. Over the uptrend line, that's bullish. Just in a downtrend, remember, it's just a label. All right, in order to negate that downtrend, they have to take out that high. Okay, see that high right there? They got to take that high out, and they can negate the downtrend status. Okay, currently in a bull flag. You can see price action moves up. It's consolidating over to the right. Let's take a look at silver. Silver also bullish. Finally in an uptrend. All right, because there's a high. They finally made a higher high. Finally, okay, broke the downtrend line up over this 12-year high. This is a 12-year high, which also doubles as a 6-month high anchored VWAP. They're up here in quadrant 4. That's bullish. Over that 12-year high anchored VWAP. That's bullish. Over the downtrend line, that's bullish. In an uptrend, obviously, that's bullish. Over the bullish trap, that's bullish. Over the flat 17, that's also bullish. Up here in quadrant 4, again, if I didn't say it once, that's bullish as well. Okay, so SLV looking good. All right, a little pullback today. A little bit sharper than we expected here. All right, so there's silver. Let's take a look at SMH. SMH, not quite in the upper third. Okay, so in the neutral zone, they were bullish a couple days ago. All right, closing inside the bullish trap, over the rising 17, over the all-time high anchored VWAP, over the downtrend line, but just in the neutral zone. They couldn't quite hold the upper third. Maybe they'll recover it today. We'll see. Okay, so there's SMH. Just neutral and in an uptrend, making higher lows and higher highs. XLK. Okay, up here in quadrant 4, that's bullish. All right, over the uptrend line, that's bullish. Over the all-time high anchored VWAP, that's the pink line, that's bullish. Closing up over the 17, that's bullish. Closing underneath the bullish trap, not so much. Right there, that's bullish up there in the upper third. That's looking good. XLF. Lower high, lower low, closing underneath a bearish cross, closing over the 17. That's bullish. Up in quadrant 4. That's bullish. Over the all-time high anchored VWAP. That's bullish. All right. Making higher lows and higher highs, also bullish. Let's take a look at IYT. IYT was bullish up here in the upper third. You can see now they're just neutral. Okay, they closed below a bearish cross over the rising 17. That's bullish, but just kind of neutral here on this midpoint. Okay, underneath the all-time high anchored VWAP. All right, and price action just neutral right through here, making higher lows and higher highs. That's bullish. All right, let's take a look at the economic package. Okay, US dollar index still in a downtrend, making lower highs. Okay, lower high and lower low and a lower high and a lower low and a lower high and a lower low, breaking major support. Lower low and another lower high. All right, and will they make another lower low? We'll find out. Okay, so in a downtrend, US dollar index. Okay, on the economic calendar. Today, what do we got going on? We have jobless claims at 8:30, Chicago Fed National Activity Index 8:30, PMI Composite Flash 9:45, existing home sales at 10. Thank you, Alan, for posting that data. Natural gas report at 10:30, and a Fed speaker. Okay, that's it. Tomorrow we've got new home sales at 10, a rig count at 1, and SIFMA early close. So looks like we're going to close early tomorrow, looking like about 2 o'clock. Mr. Powell's going to speak on the 25th. All right, so kind of a light week. Let's look at those jobless claims for just a second. Consensus range was 226,000 to 235,000. The actual count was 227,000, right inside the range. Okay, so no surprise there. I didn't plan to be surprised on that one anyways. All right, max pain is 586. Put to call ratio, 1 put to each call. That's for the SPY options that expired today. Earnings report for Thursday. What do we got? We have Intuit's going to report tonight, 184 billion. Toronto Dominion Bank, they're going to report this morning, right alongside Analog Devices. Toronto Dominion Bank, 113 billion. Analog Devices, 112 billion. Other than that, some familiar names, but nothing that's going to move the markets. Okay, Intuit reports tonight, 184 billion. Friday, nothing but familiar names, but nothing that's going to move the markets. Okay, that's it for today, guys. All right. I'd expect more pullback. They might as well get this pullback out of the way. If you ask me, just get it out of the way so we can concentrate on moving up. All right? Actually, make it hard and fast. That's my preference. All right? Might as well just make it hard and fast. Get it over with. All right? So we can start moving higher. Don't drag this on forever. Problem is, they may drag it on longer than necessary. All right, so that's it for me. Let me render my video, get it out there to Cyberland, and I'll see you guys in the room in about 35-40 minutes. Thank you, everybody.